Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we can all agree that SMEs are at the backbone of a thriving economy. In Malaysia itself, SMEs account for 98.5% of all business establishments. Unfortunately, when the waves of economic disparity crashes onto global businesses, SMEs are one of the first to be swept by its tide. Without sufficient capital for resilience, many SMEs do not have the buoyancy needed to keep afloat. So a lot of them are forced to downsize, enforce pay cuts, or retrench their staff in order to survive. It's been a little bit over 2 months since the MCO was implemented, and by now, we all probably know someone who has had to take a pay cut, lost their job, or shut down their business entirely. So this is an issue that is increasingly hitting closer to home for us. However, now that the CMCO has reactivated most sectors of the economy, a majority of SMEs can once again open their doors for business and maybe even do so more effectively than big corporations. The answer to how this could be achieved lies within the very same double-edged sword that makes SMEs vulnerable to strong economic downturns in the first place, where big businesses are heavy, rigid in structure, and therefore susceptible to inertia in regaining business momentum. The fairly lightweight SMEs can leverage on their agility in quickly responding towards the changing business environment. With the right leadership and tools, SMEs can rapidly re-strategize their marketing priorities and mobilize resources to respond to the changing landscape. And this is precisely what today's session aims to address. We have brought two industry professionals in a 1-hour session to share their knowledge and the knowledge required to build a business recovery playbook, essentially, and one that's specially catered for SMEs. Our speakers will be sharing their insights on building a holistic framework for an SME's business lifecycle, how to use data as a business's lifeline, and also discuss what it means for a business to reinforce, refocus, and even retreat if necessary. So keep your questions in tow as our speakers attempt to respond to your personalized business issues. Without further delay, let me first introduce them. Starting today's session is the founder and group publisher of Business Media International, Datuk William Ng. Datuk William Ng is the group publisher and editor-in-chief of Business Media International. BMI is Southeast Asia's largest B2B media owner with brands including SME Magazine, HR Asia, Capital Asia, CXP Asia, and Energy Asia. Dr. William is also president of Enterprise Asia, the leading regional association of entrepreneurs in Asia, chairman of the Asia Spa and Wellness Promotional Council, and the president of the Global Wellness Council. Our second speaker is the chief marketing officer of MDEC, Raymond Siva. Ray has a sought-after reputation and is an influence strategist with 25 years of experience in establishing and leading board-level integrated communications strategies, among many other things. Working closely with CEOs, international brands, and local conglomerates, he is recognized in particular for his in-depth experience in leading IPOs, financial communications, and even issues and crisis management. By bringing key insights into boardrooms as the CEO of Engage Southeast Asia, Ray provides senior counsel to clients in ASEAN with an additional focus in government, public affairs, investor relations, and leadership positioning knowledge. Thank you, Dr. William and Raymond, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be part of today's session. To our participants, here's a quick run-through of today's format. Each speaker will present for 15 minutes on today's topic, after which there'll be 25 minutes of rapid-fire Q&A. So feel free to submit your questions anytime during the session through the Q&A tab on the bottom middle of your Zoom window, either with your name and company name or even anonymously. I'll be passing those questions on to our speakers to answer during the rapid-fire session. Now, with all that said, I'd like to begin with our first speaker. So off to you, Dato, anytime you're ready.
All right, I hope you can see me now.
Yes, see you and hear you clearly.
All right, hello everyone. Thank you so much for being part of today's webinar. As Vasuki has put out correctly, most of you would have paid for this webinar today. And as part of that, actually contributed to to Mercy Malaysia. Thank you. I think this is the time for us to be more generous, if anything at all. Before I go on, if I can quickly, for my own self and also Raymond to know you a little bit better, if you can type in the Q&A tab in front of you. If you're an employee, would you mind to type 1? If you are a business owner and doing very well despite the pandemic, please type 2. And if you're a business owner and is badly affected by the pandemic, type 3. And last but not least, if you're a business owner and is about to give up and throw in the towel, type 4, so that we know at what stage you are at, as well as who you are listening to this webinar. All right, I will now share my screen on a presentation that I've just put together yesterday just for today's session.
You see your slides there, Dato'?
You can see it, eh?
Yes.
Let me just bring up the Zoom as well. All right, so clearly, of course, today's topic is really a survival guide for SMEs. I'm trying to look at the Q&A. So we have Shoba, Yongkiat, Aina, who typed 1. So if anyone else in the audience who are SMEs, let me know, please, so that, so that I know that who you are listening in. Because primarily what I've done in this slide, addressing SME owners. Of course, if you are working for an SME, this would be important to you as well. All right, so like many of you SMEs out there, I've gone through 3 major recessions. The first one was the 97 Asian financial crisis. I think this is something that I had when I was an employee. I lost my job. Subsequently, I also went through as a business owner during SARS in 2003. Of course, then there was the 2008 global financial crisis. So what I hope to do today is really to share with you what I've learned personally from this crisis and how I've actually pivoted my business. And today, what are those lessons that perhaps some of you who are facing similar challenges are able to do? First of all, this is the cover of the SME magazine back in 2008 during the global financial crisis. As you can see, I'm a bit of an alarmist. So big cover says surviving the recession, why laying off your staff is not the best option. Then the next cover, this is in 2005, if I remember correctly, the Europe meltdown. Greece went into bankruptcy. Huge crisis throughout Europe, less impacted in Asia, but many businesses also felt the problem as well. But what I'm trying to say here really is that in all these crises that we had in the past, what we see is really the tip of the iceberg. If you look at this diagram that I've actually put together, at the top is where we are now, the COVID-19. But the coming recession that's going to hit us, that will be the bottom of the iceberg. So this is how the virus financial crisis is going to look like. If you think that as it is bad, the business may have slowed down by 80% for some of you. Some of you may already have been asked to take a pay cut or even been asked to leave your jobs. Please note that this is only the beginning. This round, the recession, this round, the crisis is going to be much deeper than what it was previously. Number one, there was no lockdown in all previous crises. And more important, this is a truly global crisis in the making. No country and very few industries are spared. And equally important, I think, if you really see the governments today, compared to say 10 years, 20 years ago during the past crises, are a lot less organized. Part of the reason is because of the extreme polarization that has actually emerged over the past 5 years or 10 years. Polarization of beliefs, of ideologies, and of course of social class. So because of all these reasons, this round, the crisis is going to be even worse. Next, so while the COVID is going around, another bigger threat looms for SMEs. And what is this? This is something that has already been happening even before the pandemic has actually broke out. And this is the digitalization and globalization. So we like to think that this is actually a neo-colonialism. I know that Raymond represents MDEC, so it's going to talk a bit about digitalization in a short while, I suppose. But the question that all of us SMEs really need to ask is this, and think about it. how are all of us really benefiting from the globalization? Beyond our palm oil and oil and gas products, has our exports as a country grown significantly? Even before the pandemic, the retail sector has more or less died. So has the F&B sector. And of course, many of you are from the advertising and media industry. You know how devastating the past 10 years has been. If you are a publisher, your business would have seen at least a 90% drop. If the agency, even if you have pivoted to, say, offering digital media services, gone into digital creatives and so on, you would have seen even that has been impacted. So people say, why not go online, right? Go into online platform. But then there's the issue of brand dilution. When you do that, ultimately, I think the winners are actually the platform owners, the Alibaba and the eBay, and of course the Google and the Facebook. So that is, I think, a bigger threat that all of us must be aware of beyond the pandemic. Right, so the next question to ask ourselves is this: is the pandemic really an opportunity or a threat? What if the pandemic has just hastened the inevitable? And this is a line of thought that I want to really strengthen and ensure everybody understand that the new normal that everybody is speaking is really the normal, but sped up, right? That means the future of everything digital, the future of working from home is something that would have happened with or without a pandemic. But the pandemic has essentially just speeded up. Instead of taking 10, 20 years, it has now taken us 1 year to get there. But either way, the question to ask ourselves is our business model the right business model given the economic reality that we are in? So is this an opportunity for us to examine our respective business model, or is it really a threat? The next question to ask us is, have you trimmed all your fat? This is obviously the natural question. If you haven't done so, you absolutely have to do so now. If you have not spoken to your landlord about reducing your rental, if you've not spoken to your suppliers about taking a haircut from the money that you owe them, if you have not spoken to your staff, unfortunately, and I understand that many of you here are actually staff, you absolutely have to. Whether it is a 10% cut, whether if you have to let go of people, I think these are questions that you really need to ask yourself. Have you trimmed the fat? And do you want to save your business, or do you want to save your staff? Next is, of course, ask for help. What have you got to lose? We realize that as entrepreneurs and as SME owners, many of us are just not inclined to asking for help. That is the nature of entrepreneurship. But this pandemic is something that we must learn to ask for help. If you need help, if you don't know how to go about it, do ask around. All right. Next, survival guide for SMEs. So I've put together a list of 10 points. If I have time, I'll try and go through all of them. I think this is all crucial. First of all, what do you do as an SME if you've been hit hard by the pandemic? What do you do? The first and natural thing, of course, is to conserve your cash. During this period, you realize that there's going to be a lot of vendors, a lot of gurus, a lot of training people and so on who will tell you, look, you should spend on more advertisement. You spend on reinforcing certain areas. You must spend on digitalizing your business. You must spend on cross-training and retraining your staff. But what I would say is slightly different. What I would say is, if anything else, conserve your cash. Your business will not die if your staff do not have the necessary skill set, the right skill set immediately, right? Your business will not die if you are not in a digital platform tomorrow. Your business will die if you run out of cash. So point number one, and you must always remember this, is whatever it is that people tell you, number one point during a pandemic like this is really to conserve your cash. Number two, clear your inventory. I know of a lot of business owners who are very, very attached to the inventories, right? So certain inventories, they look, I'm going to sell below this price because that will be cheapening myself up. I'm not going to offer my services at this particular rate because, people spread the word and before you know it, everyone's going to ask for discounts. What I would say is this: a ringgit in hand is a lot more valuable than 2 ringgit on your invoice. This is not a time for you to actually hold on to price. This is not a time for you to hold on to your products and services. This is really the time for you to clear your inventory. Point number 3, new markets and new products, whether it's vertical or horizontal. Some people call this a pivot, right? That's a sexier term. ultimately, it basically means looking at what you currently have, look at what kind of new markets and what kind of new products that you possibly can offer, given the resources that you have, the knowledge that you have, the skill sets of your staff and your people that are working with you. So based on all those areas, what are the possible new markets and products you can do? If you know this salad shop called Salad Atelier, so there's one just right across from my offices in Paradigm Mall, and I go there very often. I think at least twice or three times a week, and I love their salads. So during the pandemic period, not only has they gone completely online, right? Because MCO, you can't go to malls and all the outlets are in the malls. Not only have they gone into Foodpanda and Grab, very importantly is that they started not just selling salad, but they started to sell meat. They started to sell vegetable baskets and vegetable bags, right? Because at one point people say they can't go to supermarkets to buy the vegetable. So they sell fresh vegetables as well. So it's not just salads. So that is one way for us to actually find new markets and new products to go into. Other than all the things that Masuki has mentioned, I also own a smallish ice cream chain called Frozen. We started off in Bangsa, and now we have 4 outlets across Klang Valley. So when the pandemic broke in December and January, obviously our business, we were doing about, I don't want being transparent, we're doing about 80 to 100,000 ringgit a month selling ice cream. And we saw our business take a huge dip from 80 to 100,000 ringgit a month. We went straight to about 6,000-7,000 a month in December, in January and February. And December is supposedly our peak period because Christmas, festive season, people come and eat ice cream. So huge impact to us even before the MCO. So what did we do in pivoting? What did we do in exploring new markets and new products? Starting this month, early May, we introduced sandwiches. This is something that I would never thought of doing because this would dilute our brand, right? We're an ice cream shop, an artisanal ice cream boutique. Why would we be selling hot food? And we started doing that, selling sandwiches because of Ramadan, because that's what Foodpanda are selling well. And we saw our sales jumping back to close to 20,000 in May alone. Not fantastic, but at least it is far from the single-digit thousands that we were doing. So ask yourself this question. If you're a media agency, advertising agency, what new market, what product that you can both introduce and own during this period? Next is to digitalize. Again, I think this is very important. With or without the pandemic, this is actually obviously something that we must all do. Apply for all subsidies. There are a whole list of subsidies out there that's been announced by the Malaysian government, and if you operate in other markets, by the other market governments as well. So do apply for all the subsidies that you are entitled to. I think this is very crucial. Many people say, look, it's too much trouble. Will we get or won't get? Do we even need it? The question now is not about whether you need it. You just go and apply for everything. Unfortunately, from what we hear right now among the SMEs, most of these subsidies has already dried out. Whatever funds that are remaining are being dished out very, very carefully. So chances of you getting the full subsidy is not so bright, but don't waste any more time. If you haven't done so, apply for all the subsidies. Next is obviously, this is a no-brainer. Keep your clients happy. All the more reason to ensure that your top clients are spoken to every day, if possible. Make sure they still remember you, even if your products and services may no longer apply to them right now. Next, make tough decisions. This is again something that that many SMEs think that they can do, but many can't. One of those tough questions is, do we or do we not retrench people? Do we or do we not let go of people? Do we or do we not cut out branches that are no longer sustainable and profitable? Do we or do we not drop an entire line of business because they are not going to be making any money in the near future? So make those tough decisions and make those tough decisions fast. Don't delay anymore. Next, be defensive. Needless to say, there are some of us who are in sectors that are doing well, even despite the pandemic. Say you are doing PPE, gloves, masks, and so on. And all of a sudden, demand has gone up. But despite the demand going up, I think this is a time to really be defensive. Don't just because your products are temporarily in demand that you scale up unnecessarily. Scale up and max out your capacity, great, but think very carefully when it comes to, say, opening a new line, opening a new factory, opening a new division just to cater for this increased demand. Next is very important, show compassion for your employees. Very crucial. Many of us as business owners forget that while we ourselves have these challenges of paying salaries, right? Zero income for the past 3 months, and you set a pay salary every month. If you're 100 people, you're paying half a million every month. Where do you find the money, right? Rental still goes. If you run an F&B outlet, your freezers, your chiller still have to be operated. Very challenging, obviously. But at the same time, we must also show compassion to employees. Just because they may or may not have the same number of digits of expenses, it doesn't mean they're not in deeper trouble than you are. So it is the right time to actually show compassion. This is even more important than doing training, even more important than taking care of their safety, their health, and so on. Is really to empathize with them and show that at this point we care. And last but not least, and this is equally important, if you're an SME and you're in SME grouping, this is a time to support each other. In many industries, including in the media industry, including the advertising, creative industry, we can be very, I don't know whether I should use the word self-centered, but we're very concerned about sharing because we do not want our competitors to learn from us. And that's natural, right? We don't want whatever good ideas that we have be taken over by our competitors. But because of the pandemic and because of the crisis, I think it is important now that we support each other and share as much as we can. The time for selfishness can come back again later on, but right now it is time to share what you know, what you have with each other so that all of us can actually at least survive this pandemic. All right, so that is what I've got to say on the 10 points. Wasuki, do I still have a bit of time?
Yeah, we can spare about 3 more minutes. Is that okay?
All right, so to wrap up, what are 3 things that we must do? What are 3 things that we can do? It really depends on what stage of the business that you are in. Let me just... 1, reinforce. I think this is important if you're in broken, right? So reinforce. If your business is doing very well and certain segment of the business is doing very well, say, for example, you're a media agency and suddenly realize that there's a huge demand now for digital advertising. All your clients are contacting you and say, hey, can you help me to put up this creative and advertise on Facebook and so on? And suddenly see a huge jump of this demand. Then reinforce your offering on that area. Drop everything else. Put all your resources into it. It sounds like a common sense thing to do, but you'll be surprised how many business owners actually do not realize that this is what you must do today. So if you have a segment of business that are doing very well, put in all your efforts right now into it. Number 2, what if none of the business has that? Looking at all your businesses, none of it is doing well. You're struggling, right? Every segment is down. Then what do? Look into the resources that you have. Look into the know-how and the knowledge that you have. What can you do to repurpose yourself? I think a classic example, and many of you have seen it by now, is obviously the aviation industry. Tony Fernandez, right? Somebody that, of course, I truly admire to some extent, right? And all the planes are grounded. That's obvious. Nobody wants to buy anything. He tried to pre-sell the year-round annual pass for Asia X, I think. That's one of the things that he did. But more importantly, he has a e-commerce site, ourshop.com, that has now been repurposed. Instead of selling liquor and single malt and perfume and things like that, if you go in now, you see, he's selling vegetable. He's selling essential products, milk, onions, right? Ginger, curry powder. And that's our shop, right? So that is repurposing what you currently have, the platform that you have, the resources that you have into making money. In short, find a way to make money. Do not be ashamed. Do not think that, look, you're losing ground just because you are repurposing your business in order to survive this pandemic. And last but not least, what if despite all that? So you try to reinforce, if you have a good business, you try to repurpose if you don't. But despite all that, if you can't do anything, what do? Do a retreat. There's really no shame in retreating. What this basically means is that if you have to shut down your business temporarily, unfortunately, I see that a lot of the people who actually answer in a Q&A says 1111, so you're an employee. So it is not something that anybody want to hear. But in reality, if you're a business owner, and if you have to shut down your business now and restart it under a different name, restart it under the same name but in the future, then you must do so now. If you think that, look, despite all the things you have done, there's just no way that your line of business is going to survive the pandemic in a short run. People ask me this question all the time. Should I as a business owner, or should we as a business owner use our own savings to build our own company, right? So say, for example, you have 100 staff, as I said just now, and your payroll is $500,000 every month, and you only have enough cash in your account for 3 months. What do you do on the fourth month? Do you then take money out from your own savings and give it to your staff so that you can keep the company intact, keep the staffing intact? I think this question is something you really need to ask yourself, but I would like to hear paint out an obvious option if you haven't considered so, and that is a retreat option. All right, so that is all I have, Vasuki. I'm happy to take on any questions later on. It doesn't have to be just SME owners. Feel free to ask any questions that you may have for me.
Thank you, Dato. Yeah, like in my introduction, I explained that one of the publications under Dato Williams' purview is SME Magazine. So this is really your opportunity to ask business-specific questions. So if you are in any way involved in an SME, or if you know someone, a family member or a friend who is, just feel free to submit those questions. We'll be entertaining as many as we can. So yeah, thank you so much, Dato, for that. I'll see you again during the Q&A session. If that's all, I would like to invite Raymond on. Raymond, the floor is yours whenever you're ready. So we have you just turn on your video and your audio. Okay, see you. Okay, good.
Good.
Yes,
Well,
okay.
Good evening. Thank you, Vasuki, for having me on this webinar. Dr. William, it was a great presentation, very real, very pragmatic in its approach. I also love to see the people in there. Yeah? People now, they've gone up to about 36 participants. We don't quite know whether all of them are employees or they're running their own business. Yeah. So what I want to do now is just to share with you some of the things that we feel is important from the Malaysian Digital Economy Corporation, or MDEC. A bit of a background, you know, I've run my own business when I was 23. Thought I could do it all. So ran that for 7 years. Then after which I went in-house, joined an agency, moved around the region, and then, you know, back to MDEC right now. And this by far has been the most intense 3 months that I've seen in my various business interactions. Right, you have a really, truly a confluence of events that have come together, and I wouldn't even say a perfect storm. It's more than a perfect storm. You know, you wouldn't even have thought about all these factors coming in together over a span of 60 to 90 days. What we've seen is that the pandemic, which is on right now, the external shocks and the economic slowdown have led to a breakdown really in trust, in confidence, in business as usual, right? Firstly, when we heard the news of COVID-19 in January, February, then March, countries throughout the world, you know this, right? Malaysia as well, put restrictions on movement and trade. We were forced to live in the new norm, right? And really the cost of not doing that, the cost of not implementing the MCO would have been far greater than any sort of economic loss that could come out of it, right? So you can see now Malaysia has done pretty well, and you see countries down south, our neighbors down south, and other countries around the world who now feel that they should have done the MCO a lot earlier. This has also really forced us to go digital by desperation, is what we say, right? A lot of the workforce went work from home or remote working almost overnight, right? BCPs, which was previously parked under a shelf somewhere, was pulled out, dusted out, and a lot of companies were looking through it, updating it, trying to figure out how to use it. Crisis communications became very important as companies look to speak to their supply chain, look to speak to their employees, look to speak to their bankers, their funders, and also the community. Now, if you marry that together with the disruption in the global supply chain, that makes it really difficult for businesses to really operate, right? You saw the supply chain from China really drying up. We could not get almost anything from China for a month. And even if we could, you didn't want to. Countries in the US really looked to shift their supply chain into other countries. The oil and commodity prices was another hit, right? So in this confluence of events that came together, we saw Russia and Saudi Arabia and the US at odds, and that has driven down the oil prices down to a level that we've not seen in almost 40 years. Commodity prices are still very weak, and that really has affected a lot of industries out there who are dependent on these commodities. Recently, just a couple of days ago, we've heard about the US-China trade deal that's being renegotiated. So the trade war is not completely over. There's still some uncertainty about what the President of the United States is going to do or wants to do with this trade renegotiations. And Brexit, although it may not in itself impact Malaysia, as our trade with the UK is not very high, very significant, but it has a chance to trigger a imbalance in Europe that may then spill over to the other economies. We're not completely out of the woods yet. And as you come down to Malaysia, we were already looking into jobs and income last year. And if you remember, the reports that came out in Q4 2019 was one of the weakest we've had in a long time. The cost of living now obviously also is a real concern with Malaysians. And really the government has estimated daily losses of 2.4 billion. You've heard these numbers being mentioned, while businesses remain closed. So the balance, the fine balance that the government had to consider is really unenviable. Yeah? You go on losing $2.5 billion, and how do you manage that with the safety of Malaysians, which is really of paramount interest. Then you look at the other number, 2.4 million Malaysians could lose their jobs if the lockdown was extended. And this is according to the Malaysian Institute of Economic Research. And there's a lot of our fellow brothers and sisters who would be having a problem with income, right? No income. So in this situation, there's a triple whammy that has hit all the SMEs, right? Including the agencies. And I know this, right? I ran one of the biggest PR agencies in Malaysia and also in Jakarta. And I can see my colleagues in the agencies as well, struggling with the current situation. Now, from a government's point of view, there's the 6R strategic approach. If you guys have not heard about it, well, let me introduce you to it. It's a resolve and resilience, which we've gone through over the last couple of months. And we're right now in the restart phase. So as you can see, the CMCO is part of the restart phase. And so we're restarting the economy now in a very systematic and controlled manner. This is where the disbursement of the 250 billion package, the Prihatin package, is anticipated to go down to the ground. And as you heard Dr. William saying earlier on, that is very true. A lot of businesses are still finding it difficult now to avail themselves of the funds. A lot of the funds has been disbursed, or still, they've gone through the system already, right? So do not stop. The restart package, if it's not enough, the government has said they will look at other avenues in terms of pump priming a lot more, as the SME is a very important segment of our local economy. The next 6 to 12 months probably is the recovery stage. That's when we stabilize the SMEs, which is really the heart and soul of our economy, right? SMEs, there's about 930,000 SMEs in Malaysia. And they make up the bulk of the economy, and they also are the bulk of employers. So it's really important for us to stabilize the SME sector and then move on to the recovery sector and see how else can we expand our economic pie. We'll then move on to the revitalized part, and then we'll go on again to the reform part, which is, I think, really important because there's not very many times in history where a country or the world is given a chance to restart or to press the reset button in terms of how we want to approach the economic recovery from a crisis as bad as this, right? Digital really is an important role in Malaysia's economic recovery. So you see the comments coming out from Topa, who was the EPU minister. You've seen all the other comments coming out, including the World Bank, say that in this kind of time when you are constrained with movement, restriction of movements, restriction of goods moving across borders, disruption to supply chain, consumer sentiment, what do you do, right? And it's without a doubt that digital will be the way forward. There must be a thinking around how do you leverage on the digital platforms and tools that are available out there. Money is not really everything. You probably need to recognize that even without the current situation that we're going through, there will still have to be some investments in your business, whether it's in talent or whether it's upgrading your office capabilities, IT, tech, and so on. What has happened now that it has accelerated the need for companies to revisit their paybacks, right? And where you need to invest to get the most amount of impact. We posit that's around digital tools, digital skills, and that's really for us a no-brainer. If you look at the framework that is critical to support the SME digitalization, and all of you in here, think about your companies, the least that you have is a website. That's the least that you have. Right? If you don't have a website and you're in the advertising or communications industry, then things can be a little difficult, right? Then you've got your other social channels and social networking channels. The social channels, as you know, would be Instagram, Facebook, and like YouTube. And the social networking channels, obviously, is things like LinkedIn. So you'll have your digital presence, right? And a lot of us have already gone into digital commerce, right? So you increase your visibility to potential customers. You send out your emails, you do your email blasts, you do content marketing, and so on. And that allows you to interact with your customers on a 24/7 basis. What it then helps you to do is that instead of hiring more people, sales people, or opening up more offices, it has allowed you increased market access already, and you guys know that. The growth stage here for small and medium enterprises is how do you improve workflow better? You got to think about how to automate the mundane tasks. So for PR firms, it's things like media monitoring, right? Where I remember when I was an intern and when I was doing, my work way back when, we used to physically take the newspapers, look through it, cut out the clippings, count the advertising value equivalent and all of that, right? And now as we go along, we have media monitoring agencies and more right now, right? Data analyst companies and so on and so forth. And you got to really think about other areas as well, even from the advertising industry. What does ad tech or market tech do for us? How do we improve operations, right? And how do we improve the customer experience? Is there a way that we can automate certain things like the WIP, the work in progress, or other things to increase efficiency, seeing clients face to face? Can we do that via Zoom calls right now? So we've got to think about what are the other tools that we can bring in, right? And as you go on and you get bigger, or if you're already big, how do you accelerate competitiveness? And really this is about data. And moving forward from this point on, data is going to be crucial with the way we address our consumer segment or our market segment, right? If you have a baseline of data and you have an ability to have data analytics, then there's an opportunity for you to move into AI, artificial intelligence and machine learning and the rest, right? And then you have a capability to kind of, I wouldn't say completely pivot, but to then reframe your value to the market, right? Create a bit of a different business model if the current model is not quite working. And it all goes towards future-proofing your business, right? And really thinking about how best do you deliver the customer experience? How best do you deliver value to customers at this point of time? And moving forward over the next 6 to 12 months, I don't think things will change very much. You've got to start thinking about how to use data to improve your customer experiences, right? So the positioning post MCO, and I've said this before many times, and MDEC, we completely believe it as well, will be in data, right? And what's this used for? You can use data to see when confidence for the future returns. You can measure sentiments. You can time certain campaigns, certain product launches, and certain other business expansion, if you may, by looking at the data. You can understand how consumers are responding, how they're browsing and buying, for example, during this Ramadan period, Ramadan e-bazaars. Moving forward, if the schools open, how do parents and teachers would react to that? And what is your behavior to ongoing news events? What if we have a second wave of the pandemic coming through in a couple of months? What does the data tell us, right? And you can use the tools that you have, like surveys and so on, to your customer, your current customer, and your potential contacts list. And you should try and have as much as possible a capability to analyze your primary data, which means data coming in from your LinkedIn channels, from your social media channels, and also from your sales channels, if you have any. And then you map it with the secondary data, which is data from any of the research houses out there, like Gartner, Frost and Sullivan, and all of that. And there's so much of data out there, so that you can have a sense of what you need to do with your business. The data is also important because as the world is self-isolating, it doesn't mean that this will happen for the next 5 to 10 years, right? There will be an eventual return to pre-COVID levels, and there will be a release of the pent-up demands. For example, travel. It may not be immediate, but it will come, right? Movies, arts, theaters, going to the park, zoo. There are many other things that will come back, right? And so what I strongly believe is that it's not so much a campaign where we talk about, for 3 months, we try and push sales, we try and get things as much as possible. I think what this time has taught us is, let's go for the movement. Let's try and get our brothers and sisters together. Let's get Malaysians together. Let's get a particular segment of community together, to move towards where you want them to, right? And some of the messaging from here is the triumph of the human spirit. The human spirit is always very, very strong. Yeah? We know this. Come what may, over the last 2,000-3,000 years, we've always managed to overcome any sort of adversity, and we'll overcome this adversity too. So as businesses, we need to believe in that, right? And now is a good time if you're thinking about a campaign or a movement or advertising or promotion. Think about that. How do you latch on to this, right? Engage your employees. I think it's very important. Most of the time, we are very external facing. It's very, very important at this point of time, especially if they're working from home. Engage with them, speak to them, keep them in the loop of what's coming up. If you intend to do something different or you want to launch a new product, it's really important for you to engage with the employees. And thirdly, get the digital school tools and skills. These are simple things like, the Zoom, you have many others, Microsoft Teams, you have many other tools out there that will be very helpful in your journey to get onto the digitalization at the end of the MCO to remain competitive, right? And also leverage the new norm. Working from home, you can reduce on your rent, office rent. Look at freelancers. If you have an urgent job and you do not want to have a full-time head count, get into things like GetCraft, GoGet, and there's so many others out there. Even on MDEC, we have the GLOW, the Global Online Workforce, that allows matching of freelancers to the job that you have. Video conferencing, social commerce. As you can see recently, people are moving on Facebook and Instagram to sell, to pivot your business, right? So it could be advertising, offering of design, even PR counsel. Think about what you can do with it, right? And the data collection is really very, very important here, right? How do you integrate the digital data points, the data points and analysis to lead to a certain action, right? Integrate the digital user experience as we think about how the users come to us or how we want to fulfill their demands. Think about how digital plays a part, and think about the safety measures right now, yeah? Because a lot of companies now will also have a lot of restrictions about foreigners or outsiders or anyone coming into their premises. So you got to think about if you're in the advertising, comms, and other businesses, if your job is in sales, how would you want to try and overcome that? So despite progress made, key challenges exist. So we've done surveys and we looked at it. For the SMEs, there are challenges. 65% require IT and technical skills. 76% need digital marketing skills. And to Dr. William's point just now, you see that a lot of demand is coming in for digital marketing, social marketing. A lot of people don't quite understand how to do this. Content marketing. Funding is a challenge to digitalization. 79% highlight funding as the most useful government assistance, and we are working together with many other government agencies to provide just this to the SMEs across various channels, yeah, including the technology fund, technology service provider fund, where there's matching grants provided for SMEs who want to get onto the digital bandwagon, and many other fund opportunities that you have that I will share at the end of this presentation. Surprisingly, internet connection is still a problem, and also mobile devices. That doesn't quite help in this new norm. So some of the available resources that we have for SMEs to tap into under our Digital Against COVID movement that we have launched. If you look at it, digital skills, we've got many platforms for all of you guys to get onto the digital bandwagon, right? So, for example, Let's Learn Digital with Coursera. We're providing over 3,800 courses for free, right? For free for you guys to go on during your time at home, even on the weekends to pick up additional skills. All of this, others say Eco 42 General Assembly workforce retraining. So you can go onto their websites to have a look and see whether you want to pick up the new skills around digital. Talent matching, upskilling platforms. For digital adoption, which is for SMEs to get onto the digital bandwagon, we've got the SME Digital Quick Wins, the tech service provider platform service matching, and we've also got Go e-commerce and e-usahawan for e-commerce training and onboarding. Funding and support, we've got a lot down here as well. So avail yourselves to all of this support that has been provided by government and also the private sector. So my question to you before I move on to my last two slides is, these key issues, opportunities, digitalization. There's always a fear. What does digitalization really mean? Do I have to spend a lot of money? I don't have people running it. We say it is easy. We say that if you don't try, you won't know, and you will be left behind. So you got to think about your businesses, where it is right now, and what portion of the business will create the most amount of impact with digitalization. That is something you got to look through your business, and can reach out to the help out there to get some support, rethinking or reframing where digital is going to be important and providing the most impact to your business. And how do we embrace the new normal, or how we don't embrace the new normal, right? What is the new normal? Work from home is the new normal, right? Video conferencing like this, webinars. Where do we draw the parameters on working from home? There are many things that we have to look at in the new normal. So do we take this as an opportunities? Do we take this as key issues, and how do we handle them? I think is something that you guys need to look at, right? And that brings me to the end of the presentation, and really very happy to take any sort of questions that you have. Vasuki, back
Thank you, Raymond. Thank you so much. Hi, Dato. Thanks for joining us again as well.
Okay, that was a good presentation, Raymond. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. And we've had questions coming in. So before I start asking the questions, I'll just like to remind participants again, just send in the questions through the Q&A tab. And this is a good opportunity for you to essentially get solutions from people who are experts in giving them. So I'm going to start with a question that's come in from Idora, and I think this is in regards to Dr. William, when you mentioned if you haven't already tapped into the subsidies that are available, this is your time to register and get them. And I think Idora is asking, what are some of the subsidies for SMEs?
I think number one, always remember that the subsidies did not necessarily be limited to the one that was introduced by the current Prime Minister in conjunction with the MCO. I think he called it Prihatin. There are already other grants out there. For example, your market development grant that is administered by Matrade that you can look into. But the obvious one are the ones under Prihatin. The first one is the wage subsidy program. Almost all SMEs I know of has applied for this. Of course, the only reason why you shouldn't apply is if you're already plan to close down your business or you plan to retrench your staff. Other than that, I think it is a no-brainer. There's also the 5,000 ringgit digitalization grant via MDEC, and I'm sure Raymond can share more. I think there's currently a list of about 300 plus vendors or providers in all areas, training platforms, even advertisement and so on, that you can work with to avail of this matching grant, which should be dispersed via MDEC. And if you need funds to tide over this, this is especially so for manufacturers that may have bought certain machine and your lease payment is up soon, and you just basically don't have any funds to repay those right now. This will be very useful. Apply for them. There's a couple of low interest funds that are out there, not overly difficult to apply, and know of a lot of people who has actually applied and gotten them. And if your business is really small, there's also the 3,000 ringgit incentive that the government is giving away, as well as the 0% interest rate that you can apply via BSN. From what we have understood so far, these funds have now been completely used up. But we are hopeful that more of the same thing will be introduced. So these are some of the things that that I could say offhand. I hope that helps.
Okay. Raymond, would you like to add anything to that in your own knowledge? Or
The technology services providers that we have really are there to provide any sort of services, digitalization services that the SMEs require, right? So the matching grant, each company can apply up to 3 times for 3 different services. Yeah, for example, your accounting or business, your ERP and supply chain, for example. Yeah, so you can apply up to 3 services. So and it's a matching grant, like I said. Yeah, so you put in 5,000, the government puts in 5,000, and then we match you towards the right technology service provider to help you through the digitalization of that particular sector that you have, right? There's still a lot of funds available in there. We're constantly onboarding new TSPs, and Bank Simpanan National BSN is the main portal for the application for SMEs. So I would encourage all of you guys listening in here and to tell your friends as well that this is a really good fund, right? It's 50% discount if you think about it, right, on your digitalization journey.
okay, thank you, Dato. Thank you, Raymond, for that. That's actually a good segue into the next question that we have from Roshan, and it's to Raymond. Is asking, hi Raymond, what are some of the affordable platforms SMEs can invest in to upgrade their data collection? And I think is in regards to your slide on collecting data on consumers' changing behaviors and stuff like that. So, yeah.
You know, some of the easiest thing that I've used myself is LinkedIn, for example, right? So LinkedIn is a social networking platform, right? And it's a great place to have a lot of business owners in a very high level of leadership in there, technology players and so on. Ask a question, put a poll up there, right? If you want to gauge what is going on around the business community. Facebook is great to have a bigger throw, yeah? But for Facebook, for you to get the reach, you would have to put some money behind it, yeah, so that it really goes past just your followers. But if your intent is to ask your followers what they think, put some try putting a poll up, right? I think it's very effective, almost at no cost. But if you want to go into other more sophisticated tools, there's also companies like Datel, Dattel, Datel. And there are many others as well who are experts in a particular field, yeah, who can run proper surveys for you. So I think these kind of tools you can Google up, or we can also, Roshan, I can take it offline with you a bit later on. Just some of the tools that I want to mention here would be things like Device Magic, and this is very easy for you to take, like to fill up forms. Yeah, you want someone like to get into a college, for example, application. You can use that. You can use things like Zoho Forms for accepting payments. There are 2 or 3 things, very many platforms out there, but I'm just giving you a few names. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So what I'm hearing you say is that in a lot of ways, like social media itself works as a data collection platform, right?
That's free. That's easiest. That's primary data. Yeah. And if you want to go to secondary data, then you have to run a proper survey. It's better than to work with a company that's able to run this for you.
Okay. So the next question is from Alfonso. He doesn't say which company he's from, and it's to Dato William. He says, Dato William, you mentioned that RM1 in hand is more valuable than RM2 in an invoice. What about payments that were pending pre-MCO? What is the best way to approach them to chase these payments, since it helps with cash flow as well?
Thank you. Thank you. So before I answer Alfonso's question, I want to add on a little bit to the previous question about SMEs and data collection. Okay. I think it's very important in my mind that digitalization that doesn't necessarily means data collection. Of course, and also doesn't necessarily means that you have to invest and own the technology behind the digitalization. You can obviously buy them, you can obviously rent them, and it doesn't mean that a lot of SMEs are frightened, when you use the word digitalization, IR 4.0, and so on. I think it is as simple as actually applying what you can. Simple thing like if you're a retailer, adopting e-wallet, for example, as simple as that, right? In my F&B business, for example, right? How do we collect data? it's basically we do reservation now. We didn't have a reservation system. We have a reservation system now. So we're not able to actually acquire clients' data. We're doing e-commerce and social commerce now. So again, we're able to acquire data. And all this come at close to zero in terms of cost, right? So that is important. In the media business that we run, for example, we go from not doing any webinar, not doing any seminar just a month ago, to doing a free seminar in the first 2 weeks. And over the last 2 weeks, what they've done is they've actually migrated into a pre-registered system, where of course now we suddenly have all the database of our readers that we didn't even have previously. We didn't know who buy our magazine out there, who actually watches our webinar, who actually go into our website. We didn't have all this data. Now we do because we pre-register for our webinar. And now that we went one step further, and we're now able to even monetize that, because now that we have the data of these people who actually view our webinar and subscribe to us, we actually successfully even get in sponsors and advertisers to now work with us on this webinar. So we go from not knowing anything at all about digital to acquiring data to now actually turning it into an additional income stream. So it's very important to understand that you don't necessarily need to understand everything about digitalization. We don't have to build it. There are plenty of platforms out there that you can use. You don't have to use all. Just pick one that you're comfortable with. So back to Alfonso, sorry, it took me a while. I think it is, what I was trying to say is this. One, if it doesn't matter what business or what services you are offering or you're doing, do not be so fixed-minded that the price that you were setting previously, you have to maintain it because of branding, because of reputation and so on. If you have to and you need to discount, then discount. So that was what I meant when I said I'm one in hand more valuable than I'm two in invoice. But to your point, what happened to money that are owing prior to MCO? Obviously, you have to collect them. I think that's very obvious. But more importantly is that do you or do you not now take a haircut of those payment? It is very important now to reach out to all your customers, collect as much as you can, and if really necessary, discreetly and strategically offer payment terms, offer discounts if necessary. The key here now is really to get in as much cash as you can and as soon as possible. You may think, look, we want to discount. We do not want to do that. We're not going to take any haircut because we have delivered services. We ourselves have a small margin of say 5-10%. We have to give everything else to our suppliers and so on. And because of that, we're not giving them discount. But bear in mind that there's also a high possibility that some of your customers will just disappear a month down the road. So better to have those money right now than to wait longer. So work on a payment plan, because that can go to collect some of it first, and then if as the situation improves, collect the rest. Right. I hope that answers the question.
Okay. I'm going to ask the next question that's coming from Roshan to follow up just now with Raymond. And he says, "Hi Raymond, can you elaborate on talent matching?"
Very interesting question. So there's a couple of meetings recently, and I just want to say this again. So the thinking right now is place and train, not train and place, right? Because there's about 300,000 graduates that come into the job market annually. We have got every conceivable schools in Malaysia, right? We've got Institute Kemahiran, we've got EVET, we've got polytechnics, we've got universities, you name it, we have it, right? And over and above that, like I said, there's 300,000 people coming to the job market. If you remember my first slide earlier on, the potential job losses in Malaysia, and what has been announced recently was 600,000 job losses over the last 2 months, right? And whether that can be recovered, we're unsure right now. We're unsure. Right? So I think this is really important about talent matching. What is being done right now, and there's many efforts from the top of the house, from top of the house, from the Economic Action Council, right down to industries like PCOM, for example, that I know, are looking and seeing where are the job vacancies, right? Because I'll give you a very funny statistics. We in MDEC, we did a poll of the 5 job platforms out there, right? With LinkedIn, JobStreet, Seek Asia, and all of that, right? Back of the envelope calculation of digital jobs at the end of February, there were close to 5,000 open jobs. Now, obviously, there were overlaps. Obviously, because the platforms will have the same jobs overlapping. But even so, there'll be about 3,500 to 4,000 jobs in the digital sector alone. there's not been filled. This was pre-COVID, right? So right now, what is really important is we need to find where the jobs are. Selayang market, if you shut down the Selayang market to foreigners, there's close to about 500 to 1,000 jobs in the Selayang market that will need to be filled, right? If we take it out of the foreigners' end. And that's what you heard the government saying, right? On the top end, you have people looking for data scientists. You're looking for programmers, developers, as people move in towards e-commerce, global supply chains. How do you reactivate global supply chain and cross-border trading? So the job matching right now is being thought about by various people, yeah? Various people, not only from the government, but also from the private sector side, yeah? There will be an event run by MDEC in July, My Digital Workforce. We are planning towards bringing together the supply and demand side, catalyzing that and seeing how best can we firstly place then train. So, for example, in the government sector, if there's say 10,000 jobs, what exactly do the skills they require? And then say, okay, you hold on to the jobs, we get the people, we train them, make sure that they are ready for that, and we put that in. You hold on to that job. So it's a different approach, rather than just training and graduating people into the market without jobs.
Okay. So, question to both of you that's coming from Jared, and he's basically asking, and I think I want to just elaborate on that, is when he says, like, what would this be a good time into collaborating with SMEs in a win-win arrangement? And I'd like to take that a bit further, and not just whether it's a good time, but what is like a way to like frame your approach when you're approaching another SME in terms of what you have to offer and what they have to offer. So Dr. William, if you can answer this first.
I think the question of collaboration is not just something limited by the pandemic. Obviously, you need to collaborate with other people throughout your entire business journey. That's a no-brainer, right? But again, many of us SMEs are very protective of ourselves. And this is actually something that is new for a lot of people. How do you work with, I assume when you say other SMEs, you're referring to competitors as well. Just approach them. I think it's definitely something that you should do. For example, I run the SME magazine. For the past 10 years, you'll be competing neck to neck with another guy. You may know him. He runs a SME newspaper called Malaysia SMEs. And we don't see eye to eye. Every time we meet at functions, he walks to the left, I walk to the right. That happens all the time, right? Over the past 1 month, both of us has appeared in each other's webinar. Both of us has seen each other online, I think more than 5 or 6 times. And there are collaborations that are already working on to launch new products together. I think this is actually the time for you to actually work not just with other SMEs, but also possibly with your competitors. As I've said earlier on in my presentation, time to share, right? I hope that sort of answered the question, yeah.
Raymond, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I think Dato said it spot on. I think sharing is caring, especially it's a foster thy neighbor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've got a question from Angeline. Says she's from MadHead Asia, which is an agency, and she said, we see a lot of cost-cutting measures by clients and foresee more in the coming months. Given the climate, in your opinion, where would most of the marketing budgets be focused on? Or maybe where should most of the marketing budgets be focused on? She said that the question is directed to Raymond. So I'll have Raymond answer first, and then Dr. William, maybe you can add on to that.
So coming from an agency background and also now client, as a client right now, performance is critical. Even when I was an agency and on this side, right, I look for my agency partners who can perform, right, who can think as an extension of my brand or my business, right? Because a lot of times internally, at this kind of times, you're looking at what's the best way to perform, get your business to perform, right? Even for MDEC, for example, right, we have to perform even more now. How do we get digital adoption for SMEs, micro entrepreneurs, right? How do we get e-learning out there? How do we bring in investment? So I'm looking for a partner right now who can help me perform as an extension of my brand, as an extension of my business. So I think it's really important as agency, and I know, right? I've managed 20 clients, 30 clients, 100 headcount. I think you really have to focus on if budgets are being cut, and they will continue to be cut for the time being, right? This is just for people to be safe. But if you come in with a campaign that performs, you trust me, there will be more budgets put your way. right? So if you look at an FMCG and if you run on a shoestring budget and you manage to push a certain SKU or whatever brand imagery or something up and you can prove that with data, there is no reason for the marketing manager to say, I'm going to just give you the same amount or cut you down. No way. If you can increase market share or you can push up profits, he's going to invest more with you, right? So you got to think about that. And I like what Dato said earlier on. I think the focus is important. Choose one or two of your key strengths and focus on it as an agency. Don't try and do everything. You will screw up, right? And so performance is key. So,
all good. I'm not really answering this question from Angeline, but just a general observation. And this is actually true for a lot of PR and advertising agencies. We are overly, to some extent, reliant on our top clients, right? 20-80 rule. So 80% of revenue come from our 20% of our clients. And that makes it very dangerous, especially when in a situation like this, when you have got one or two clients who basically, shut down or has repurposed their businesses, and suddenly you realize that, look, you're so dependent on them that when they drop off, you basically run out of business on your own. A lot of agencies, advertising agencies, are already approaching us as a group, BMI, SME Magazine, to productize what they're currently doing, right? To convert their range of services into product that can then be sold individually, possibly low cost, to SME owners and other businesses. So I think one of the things that agencies who are in this position really is think and look into what you have. Are there certain things that you can productize, not just for the lockdown or the pandemic period, but beyond that? What can you do to cut your reliance on key clients? I think that is something that we should be asking ourselves throughout. Yeah.
So to the both of you, Jude has asked, what would be the best way to experiment with the new market? So I guess in identifying what kinds of new markets would your business be most suited to experiment with, or should it be just like anything in a sense that you have the resources for? Raymond, would you like to take this first?
So a new market can be many things, right? A new market, as in now, currently with COVID, it's a new behavioral, consumer behavioral situation. There's also a new market in the sense that you want to expand past your current core product offerings into something new. There's also a new market as in cross-border. Do you want to sell to China, or do you want to try and open up, try baby steps in that area? I would say that in this time where, everything is so uncertain, experiments sahaja lah. Choose something that you want to do, but not so far removed. You're selling nasi lemak, don't go and sell cars lah. You know what I'm saying? But if you're selling nasi lemak, do you want to then sell a nice hot tea with it, right? Which will complement your nasi lemak or something, right? Think about something like that, right? Data, right? Don't go in blind lah, for God's sakes, right? I mean, spend some time getting some surveys done, putting some data out there, talk to some of your competitors in that space, and then try, right? And fail fast. I think that's my word now, right? Fail fast. If it doesn't work after a month or two, it doesn't work lah. Yeah, pull it back, retreat, right? No shame in that. At least you tried it, right? But understand your risk parameters, because your business people at the end of the day understand your risk parameters, and then try it, and then go forward or retreat depending on how well things go.
Dato', would you like to add anything to that?
I think I agree with Raymond. I think the keyword is really just do it. When we first started off our magazine, right? I think less than a couple of years when we started, we were hit very badly by I think the global financial crisis at the point. Bad timing as it is, because magazine is not the best business to be in. And we were also hit by the GFC right when we were starting our magazine. So we have to pivot into doing something else. And one of the first things that we did was to organize business awards. We made a bit of money out of that. The next question obviously is that is a business awards, you can only do it once a year. What do you do? So then we decided we should actually export what we know and what we can do into other countries. And some of the things that came out is why can't we do this in other countries? So we started off in Indonesia, and then Singapore, and then China. At a point, the first thing that come to mind was exactly what was being asked. How do we go about it? How do we go into a totally new market that we don't know anyone there? We don't know what's the regulatory environment there. What do you do? And I did what I'm asking everyone to do now. Just do it. So we just went ahead, we did it, and it worked. I think very importantly is to really understand what you are selling, what is the strength that you have. If you feel very confident that you have the right product, you feel very confident that you have the right skill sets and the right know-how to actually do this, then just do it.
Okay. So we're really getting close to time, but my people are like saying like, let's wrap it up. But I'm going to ask 2 more questions and then end it. So there's a question from Idora, and she says it's a question for her friend. She said, I'm a small business owner that's forced to go digital in terms of my sales, but my employees aren't the most digitally savvy individuals because our business has never required them to be. Are there any skill development options for me to use for them that's also affordable? And the reason I'm asking this is because I think a lot of SME owners can relate to this. So what's some of the advice you can give Idora's friend?
We have a program called E-Usahawan. E-Usahawan, yeah. Please go onto it, right? It's a 1-day course. A lot of people have benefited from it. We've trained up to 380,000 entrepreneurs. It's a packed 1-day course about digital marketing, how to run your business, branding, and many things in there, right? That I would say would be the first step, right? Go and pick up the skills. We've just finished a 1-week webinar called the E-Dagang Expo, right? Which drew over 65,000 people over that 1 week, yeah, across all the webinars. Yeah? We've reached over 1 million Malaysians. And now we're doing a second round with this E-Usahawan as well. And this is free, right? You had all the big brands in there, Our Shop, Lazada, you name it. Everybody was in there sharing. Post Malaysia, and all the rest, Carousel, in case I forget people. Alibaba, obviously, was one of the biggest in there. So what I'm saying, come to MDEC's website, right? Go to the Digital Against COVID page. Go to mdec.my and then go to Digital Against COVID. There is about 400 services that are being offered either for free or at a vastly discounted rate. It's for you guys, it's for Malaysians, it's for SMEs. 400 e-learning courses, accounting services, a whole bunch of things. So go to mdec.my and go to Digital Against COVID and see what is useful for you. I think that's the first step that you can take.
Guys, this is not a sales pitch. MDEC is actually trying to help out, so do visit their website. Dato, would you like to add anything to that question?
Yeah, that's very useful. Go to MDEC, but there's also a free resource where you can basically learn anything and everything about digitalization and how to be digital, and it's called YouTube, right? Just go in there and type whatever you want to learn that. I did that, right? I told you that during the MCO, I own an ice cream shop or ice cream shops. And sales went from 100% to 0 overnight. So what did we do? What do I do, right? Nobody did this. So I spent, I think, half a day on YouTube learning how to create my own e-commerce website, and I did that. Learn how to accept e-payment online, and we did that. So within, I think, 24 hours, we set up our e-commerce website, and it's doing well now. So I learned all that from YouTube. But I think the key thing here to notice is that your question say, it's not asking whether you learn it. You're asking, how do you get your employees to learn it? I think the key thing here is really how do you incentivize and empower employees to actually do certain things. The resources are free. It's all out there, right? YouTube, whether they want to do it or not is another issue altogether. I think there's a bigger question that we should address. How do we empower our team? How do we enable them to actually want to learn more and do more for you?
Shobha has actually been sending the links to the specific MDEC websites pages that SME owners can use. So I'm just answering them live and putting done. So if you go into the answered questions in the Q&A on your chat, then whoever's still here, you can just click on that. So I'd like to end off on a slightly different question. So if there's something that SMEs can do in like a mentality of once beaten, twice shy, what can they do now to prepare for a situation like this that might happen in the future? Are there specific insurance policies that medium enterprises can benefit from, or just essentially to not repeat the mistake again?
That's all. You go first.
I personally have a strong distrust of the insurance industry. I hope those of you from insurance industry don't mind that. So I'm not going to buy any insurance that will help. And actually did, right? We run exhibitions, and we actually bought a insurance in case our exhibition is cancelled. And true enough, the insurance was the exhibition was cancelled, and we say, look, thank God we bought it. And I think we bought for $1 million. $1 million ringgit was what we thought the insurance agency or insurance company actually owed us, because the exhibition has to be cancelled because of the pandemic. The answer came back and said, look, the government did not say the exhibition cannot go on. The government merely said that you are not advised to go to exhibitions. So on that basis, we couldn't claim anything. I think that's the short answer. Not the best experience with insurance companies. I think what really is important for a lot of SMEs out there is to have the mindset that you need to be owning your own products. So a lot of our SMEs are actually agents. A lot of our SMEs are actually intermediaries. We have very little control of what we do. I think that's something that we should start looking into. What can you own, right? Because that helps you a lot when it comes to training like this, because then you can play with prices, you can play with a lot of things because you own them, right? So there's one thing that I think we can do.
Thanks for sharing that. That was very transparent of you, Dr. William. And I guess read the fine print, all the fine prints. Yeah,
I should have. Yeah, you're absolutely correct.
Raymond?
No, I just concur with Dato on a lot of points. Insurance, yes, not the best experience with them. Again, but I think what we can do is this will not be the first, it will not be the last, right? We know that it's not be the last. I think what's really important is what do we do? How do we keep ourselves ahead of the curve, right? How do we prepare ourselves mentally, physically, both mentally and physically, for this kind of things that may happen in the future, right? Because they say your health is really important, and I say this because in our chase for business, in our chase now, in our anxiety to keep our jobs and so on and so forth, are we really also looking at our mental health and our physical health and the health of our family members, right? I say this also from experience with my brothers, my family members and my friends. So I mean, think about that, right? What you can do for the future is that always have a balance. Always have a balance. Number one. Number two, backup. You need a backup, right? So if you're not saving for a rainy day, what is that skills that you can use as a backup? Are you a maths teacher? Can you teach piano? Can you cut grass? I don't know what it is, right? I'm just saying this. I'm just saying, what is your backup plan? That you can have. And thirdly, I think do what you do best, right? And come whatever may. If you're the best at what you do, you will survive. Right? If you're a mediocre guy selling, whatever lousy thing, it's not going to work, right? You've got to be the best at what you do. So take pride in what you do, become the best at what you do, make sure you have a backup plan, and look after your health.
And I guess if you don't have a backup plan, this is a good time to upskill yourself with certain things that could work as a backup plan, essentially.
I think so. So. Yep.
Well, thank you so much. We've gone. This is the longest Q&A session we've had, but I think it was so important for people who tuned in, especially people with who are SME owners. And so I have to end the session at this point. But before we totally end, I'd like to remind everyone that we still have spots available for next week's CMO Roundtable session on relearning the marketing funnel. Our speakers will be Director of Marketing for Airbot Nutrition Malaysia, Lee Lim Meng, and Group CMO of Taylor's Education Group, Ben Fu. So just head on over to marketingmagazine.com.my/webinar to register. And on behalf of Mercy Malaysia, from the bottom of our hearts and Marketing Magazine, we'd like to thank the both of you for taking the time, for being so transparent and really giving us all that you could from the questions and your presentations. Thank you so much, Raymond and Dr. William, for your time. And thank you again, everyone who made it and stayed all the way to the end. So take care and stay safe.
Yep. Thank you for the opportunity. Best of luck to you as well.
Same to you. All the best.
All right.